Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Matt, and today I'm going to walk through how to build this kegerator.
So this is the Kegerator slash Keezer. I built it probably around 2 years ago now. It's been working great. Everything's pretty solid. I'm also going to go over how to build just the collar as well in the video because I imagine some of you might not like the pallet wood design and you're just looking to figure out how to actually build a collar around the freezer so you can design it yourself. So I'm going to go over that in the beginning, and then later on we're going to go over the pallet wood design that I have here just in case you want to copy this for your own kegerator.
So before we get started, I do want to mention one thing. This video is not a video that goes over how to set up a kegging system for your homebrew. This is simply just a design video to show how I built the actual kegerator or the Keezer collar and also the pallet wood design I ended up with. If you're looking for instructions on how to set up a kegging system, there's a ton of videos like that on YouTube already. It shows where to buy stuff and how to set it up. This is not that video. So if you're looking for that, this is not the video for you. But if you are interested in learning how I built the system cosmetically in the collar, stick around and you'll see how I did it. All right, so here we go. I have a bunch of pictures that I took when I was building this about 2 years ago. Obviously, I don't have any footage of the building process, but I think the pictures and me walking through these and going through it, I think this should be sufficient for you guys to understand how I built it. Also, as far as like really specific things like measurements and stuff, I'm not going to provide any of those. I'm just going to kind of tell you what kind of like where to be placing things and how to cut certain things if you like the way this looks. Obviously, all freezers measure differently. Some are wider, some are taller. The placements underneath the freezer can be different. The outlets can be different. So where they place the cable. So it's going to be different for everyone. But this should kind of give people a roundabout way of figuring out how to build this thing. So this is the actual collar that's built around the freezer, and you can see down here is just 1x6, 2x4, and then this is pallet wood. I'm sorry, not pallet wood, plywood. So you're gonna need a bunch of plywood, a bunch of 2x4s, and a bunch of 2x6. Down here are just I think they're called caster wheels. That you have to make sure they're weighted for a pretty heavy weight. If it's gonna hold like 3 or 4 kegs plus CO2 plus the freezer plus the weight of this thing, they need to be pretty heavy duty. These were pretty expensive at Home Depot, but I'd recommend getting the nicer caster wheels for sure. So you're just gonna cut 4 pieces of 2x6, lay them like this, and then you're gonna lay 2x4 going up. I only have 1 piece over here and 1 piece over here, and then two for the corner there. How I place this is so the freezer should be butting up against the 2x4. So there will be like a gap between like a 1.5 inch gap between the plywood and the freezer. And over here for the plywood, how it's going to look like is the 2x4s are going to butt up against the 2x6s here to be flat, and then the plywood is going to be nailed on the actual 2x4s here. One thing to note too is I would highly recommend you have a brad nailer or some sort of thing that you can shoot nails from. Staples probably might work if you got like really nice staple gun, but you're gonna probably want some sort of nailer, electric or through air compressor to do this. If you don't have it, it's not probably impossible to build this. It's just gonna slow things down quite a bit. So that kind of goes over the frame. I did have to cut a rectangle hole for ventilation. On the side of the freezer, there's a ventilation, and the back you're gonna leave open as well. For the actual collar, you're going to have to put some sort of a piece of wood between the door and the freezer to drill holes into the freezer. This is so you don't have to actually drill holes into the freezer. You're just drilling holes into the actual 2x6. So you can run the taps through the collar here. So you're going to take the door off the freezer. It should be pretty simple. I think mine were just like 2 Phillips screws on both sides. But be careful when you're unscrewing these. Sometimes there's a lot of pressure in these and they can kind of snap. So when you're unscrewing them, just be very, very careful. Another thing too is, like I said, this is just 2x6, so I just screwed this in. I think I probably glued as well, so glue and screw the 2x6, and you're just going to measure this to be your whatever size door. That's how you're going to run it. For the top piece, It's simply just a piece of plywood. And I want to say this is probably 1x from Home Depot. So you're going to just get some 1x planks, and there's probably better ways to do this, but this is just the way I did it. So the door is going to sit in this section. So this outer piece here is going to be sitting face down on top of the door. And this is just so the top can't wiggle around when it's on top. It stays solid on top. And I also wanted it removable. So the actual top isn't attached to the freezer or the collar. It can just be pulled right off, so you can access inside the freezer. So this is the finished product for the actual frame. And I think this is probably pretty useful for people who don't maybe like the pallet wood design and they just want to know how to build a frame around their freezer. This is kind of what I did. So it's just the 2x6s down here, the 2x4s running up, and then just plywood all around. And then you just saw the top there. The back, this is a view of the back, so you can kind of see a better picture of what the collar does. So you're going to have a pretty thin gap. It should be pretty tight all the way around the actual freezer. Getting it in and out is a pain in the ass, but it is what it is. The top just fits on top, and I think I put this piece on last, so I put it on that way I can kind of pull the top of the plywood tight and then nail that piece. That way I know that it wouldn't wiggle around when I'm finished building this thing. And I think the outlet plug is on the side here with the ventilation gap. But for the collar, how to attach the collar to the actual freezer is just glue. I think I used like liquid nail. And you want to just put a bunch of pressure on it. So I probably just put a bunch of liquid nail on this, set it down with the door on top, and then I just put a bunch of weight on top, left it there. I think probably 24 to 48 hours, I think they recommend for a good seal. So you're going to want to do some sort of silicone or just like liquid nail. I probably just use liquid nail. It probably not hurt to do maybe a silicone ring around it too, just to make sure it's there's nothing leaking out of it. Inside, this is a view of what the inside looked like. So like I said, there's going to be gaps here between the 2x4 and the plywood and the freezer, which is fine. That's just how I designed it. And the inside, you're going to want some sort of insulation. Wood naturally will insulate something, but you want to get some sort of insulation stapled on here just so you have better efficiency with your freezer and it doesn't have to kick on and off so much. So I think I just bought this stuff at Home Depot. It's just really thin insulation that I just stapled on there. The next thing I did is I had to drill 2 holes. I had to actually add a piece. So this is the front of the freezer here. So I actually had to add a piece of 2x6 here to fill in this gap, because these are where the collars are. This is where the actual taps are going to run through, and you don't want like a giant air gap. So I wanted to insulate this whole thing, and the best way to insulate it, I thought, was to add a piece of wood. So I slid a piece of 2x6 down here to fill this hole. And then I just took, I don't know what they're called. They're like spade bits, but it's for like door handle drilling. So you want to get one of those at like Ace Hardware or Home Depot. You can drill that into the first piece. And then where this is actually connected to, it's actually connected to the middle piece of 2x6 there. You don't have to do this. I just didn't have the longest connection here. This metal, I can't remember the name of it, but this like 5-inch or 6-inch connector to run through like all of this wood. So I had to cut through one layer so I could actually screw this onto the front of the system. So that kind of covers, again, like the collar design. Next, I'm going to go through what I did with the pallet wood design. If you like that, I'm going to go through that next. So I had a bunch of pallet wood laying around. My father-in-law also had a bunch of pallet wood, so he gave me a bunch of pallet wood. And all we did is we experimented with a bunch of different colors and stains. This is all stain, I believe. I don't think this is paint. So we ended up going with 2-tone, or really 3-tone, because the other tone is just the natural wood of the wood. So we did just 2 colors, the gray and black, and then we just did normal. And then all I did is I painted the whole frame black. You want to do that because, you know, the pallet wood isn't perfectly straight. There's going to be gaps here and there, and you don't want like bright wood color to be shining through it. So, and I wanted it to be black. So I just bought like really, really, really cheap paint, like the cheapest paint I could buy that's black. And I think I just did 2 coats of that. And then I just simply started kind of cutting it with a miter saw and just trying to figure out the best way to position it to make it look as random as possible. And I tried to make it so the colors weren't touching too much. That's why I found like if you did with a 2-color pattern, so if you just did like 1 color and then the natural wood, it would kind of look like a checkerboard. So that's why I went with a two-tone plus the wood color. That way you kind of get away from that checkerboard look. This is with the pattern fully done. On the corners here, I just did a hard edge. If you want, you can probably just do a 45 here just to clean up that edge. Looking back on it, that's probably one thing I would have changed. But when I was building this, that's just the route I took. On the bottom here is just, I don't really know what this is. It's a piece, it was just in my garage. This is a closer look of the actual piece, but it's simply just like, I would say like it's a 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch just square. It's probably from pallets. Maybe the one thing you can probably build out of this is on the back of the pallets. They have like those centerpiece and then the side pieces that the pallets sit on top. You could probably run those through a table saw and get like the cubes for down here if you're looking for something like similar design. I do like the bottom piece here because it does allow you to like rest your foot up here. I really tack this in so it can hold a little bit of pressure. So it's kind of cool to like lean against it and like put a foot up or whatever. So that kind of allows it to do that. And also it helps finish it off a little bit. It hides the wheels a little better too. So I'd recommend doing some sort of collar down here. Here, like I said, this is just showing how I lined up the ventilation here. There's a cover that goes on this that I added at the end, but for this piece, it looks like I just didn't have the cover on it yet. But I cut a hole in there just to make sure that there was proper ventilation to the actual the freezer. So this is a better look of what it looks like. The top wasn't done yet at this time. So next I'm gonna go over the top. And what I did with the top is I simply just I wanted to do some sort of shelf thing. So what I did is I like cut cubes, squares of, I want to say it was 2x6. So I just cut squares like a 2x6 square here, here, and here. And then I just wrapped it in the pallet wood. And I just cut them the same height as the pallet wood and the same depth as the pallet wood. So you wouldn't have to do like one in a sliver of pallet wood on the front or the top. And then the actual sides, I just slapped a piece of pallet wood to hide the actual 3 pieces that are supporting the pallet wood here. What keeps this on top is this outer edge piece right here. Let's see if I can find, this might be a better picture. But so this whole thing is kind of flush with the base. What I mean by that is, let me see if I can find a better picture. So you can see here that the outer depth or the dimensions of this the base here is the same as the top. So how it would like cover it is I essentially just covered the exact dimensions with the top with just this pallet wood, and then the sides here is what actually holds it. Actually overlaps the side, so it kind of holds it snugly on top of the actual freezer. So that's another look at it, and then here's another look at it. So these are, it's just one piece of pallet. I think I just cut them into like 2-inch strips and then stapled them on the side, and then that way when you pull on the top, it just kind of clamps the whole thing together. And then what I did here is I actually added this like a year after I built it, but it's just a decorative piece. Before, I just had the taps like shooting out here and here, and I didn't really have like any decorative piece here. But all this is it's just another piece of pallet wood that I just tacked on this thing. And then here I just used I ran a piece of pallet wood through a table saw a bunch of times to get these thin strips and just cut 45s and just tacked them on this. And then I just had to re-drill like a 1/2-inch hole just to line up with the existing holes for the tap lines and just tack that on front. So it's just a decorative piece. Here's another better look at what the little base piece I was talking about. It's just like a 1.5 by 1.5 piece of probably pallet wood, but I'm not really sure where that came from, to be honest. Next is the actual tap handle. So the tap handles you can make from whatever, and this could be just a general tap handle guide. If you can just buy these like little bits here from Amazon, and I'll put a link down in the description below. But this kind of, you have to just drill a hole with like a larger bit, and then you just screw these into the actual base. It's kind of hard to do this. It's not like the easiest thing to do, but once you get it in there, you want it to be tight with the actual outer edge. So go on the verge of smaller, not larger. And that way, when you screw it onto the tap handle, it doesn't like wiggle around. You want it to be like a really solid piece for the tap handle. And for the actual tap handle, I just got the thickest piece of pallet I could find. I think this was, again, the pieces of supports from a pallet. It holds the top pallets. And I think I just ran this through a table saw to get these dimensions that I wanted to. But really, you can do this with anything. If you have a nice piece of oak, or if you want to turn, I don't know, anything into a tap handle, you can. As long as you can drill a hole in it and put one of these bits in it, you can turn whatever you want into a tap handle. It's not a problem. The only other thing I wanted to mention too is with the tap handles, you can kind of see how the tap handles, at least the ones I built, are kind of thicker, and when they go back, they're very close to the front of the kegerator. One thing I had to change is originally this front piece that holds the top on the freezer was originally really thick. It was like this thick, but I noticed that this was like it was like a paper width from like actually touching this front piece. So I had to run this through a table saw and thin it out that way that there was like a big gap here, so you're not like hitting the table. Because one thing is some people were like closing the tap handle and it was still like leaking. So I had to really thin this out so people could actually close the tap handle. So you might not have that problem if you don't have like such a chunky tap handle, but I really like the bigger tap handle, so I needed to re-engineer this front piece so we could close the taps whenever we needed to. And then here's the finished product of what it looks like. As you can see, what I was trying to explain earlier is that this top piece is exactly flush with this, and then I just added these strips on the top sides and the top front so it doesn't wiggle around, and it kind of holds everything tightly together. And then obviously, you can get any type of dip tray or catch tray on Amazon. I think this is just meant for 2 glasses. If you add another tap here, you just have to make everything a little bit wider, and then you'd probably just need to get a bigger drip tray for that. So that about covers the design. You can see here is another view of the side. You see the little window for ventilation. Another picture. That's a better picture of the tap handles and the front here. And then here's how the tap comes off. So like I said, you need to be able to get in the freezer so you can actually put kegs in there. So this comes right off the top, and then you can open it up, do what you need to do, close it back up, and then this top just goes right back on. It's better just to kind of if you do the exact same design mine is just kind of set this on top and slowly inch it forward. You can't like just throw it on top because these tap handles, again, they're kind of bulky. So you need to kind of set this on top and then pull it forward to sink it behind the tap handles. Or you can take the tap handles off. If you took the tap handles off, you could just throw this on there and you wouldn't have to worry about it. But I typically don't do that because I'm lazy. So it's just better for me. I just leave the tap handles on and just kind of inch it forward so it doesn't leak. And then one other thing I wanted to mention too is this is kind of what the front of this looks like. So I got a piece of 2x6 here for the actual collar around the freezer, and the door goes on this. I got a piece of 2x6 to fill the gap for insulation. I got plywood. I got the width of the pallet wood, and then I got another width of the pallet wood. So this is a huge kind of section that you need to drill through. One thing too is the collar piece that connects the tubes to the tap handle. You need to make sure that that's pretty long. If you're going with my design, you need to make sure that's pretty long. The first one I had was actually it was like too short. It was like right here. I think it was like a 3-inch connector. So I actually had to buy like 5 or 6-inch connector to make it run through the whole thing. So that's one thing you want to consider, or you'd have to just re-engineer this so you're not going through so much wood. And that about covers it. I just wanted to make a video explaining the whole my actual kegerator, and also I thought it'd be useful to show how I built a collar as well. If people don't really want to design it this way, but they just don't know how to wrap the freezer, I found like this way is probably the best way to do it from my research. And then also the tap handles too. Feel free to check out the description section below. I'll have a link for these that I used. And you can turn anything into a tap handle. Just kind of be aware of the dimensions on the top of the kegerator, because you might be bumping into it like I was doing with my tap handles. But that about covers it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.